Question 1. What is the primary purpose of access controls in information security? Option A. To govern incident response plans. Option B. To allow or deny access to organizational assets. Option C. To manage business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Option D. To restrict access to buildings, but not data or systems. The correct answer is Option B. To allow or deny access to organizational assets. Explanation. Access controls are used to ensure that only authorized users are able to access sensitive information or systems within an organization, while also preventing unauthorized access and potential data breaches. Question 2. Which of the following is an example of a subject? Option A. A server. Option B. A database. Option C. A printer or scanner. Option D. An authorized user. The correct answer is Option D. An authorized user. Explanation. In computer security and access control, a subject is an entity that can perform actions on objects, such as accessing a resource or modifying data. An authorized user is a specific type of subject that has been granted permission to access certain resources or perform certain actions within a system. Question 3. Which of the following is an example of an object? Option A. An access control rule. Option B. A network protocol. Option C. An endpoint device. Option D. A user password. The correct answer is Option C. An endpoint device. Explanation. An object is a resource or asset that is being protected, such as data, files, programs, devices, or systems. Question 4. What is the primary difference between a subject and an object? Option A. There's no difference between a subject and an object. Option B. A subject initiates a request for access, while an object is the target of the request. Option C. A subject controls access to resources, while an object requests access to services. Option D. A subject and an object are the same thing. The correct answer is Option B. A subject initiates a request for access, while an object is the target of the request. Explanation. A subject initiates a request for access, while an object is the target of the request. In access control, a subject is an entity that can perform actions on objects, such as accessing a resource or modifying data. Question 5. Linda works for a large organization that has multiple systems and applications. The organization decides to implement an integrated identity and access management system. What would be the main purpose of this system? Option A. To prevent unauthorized access to organizational assets. Option B. To restrict access to buildings, but not data or systems. Option C. To manage business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Option D. To govern incident response plans. The correct answer is Option A. To prevent unauthorized access to organizational assets. Explanation. The system would help to streamline the management of user identities and access permissions across all of the organization's systems and applications, reducing the risk of security breaches caused by unauthorized access or user error. Question 6. What is an access rule? Option A. An access rule is an instruction developed to allow or deny access to an object by comparing the validated identity of the subject to an access control list. Option B. An entity that requests access to organizational assets. Option C. Anything that a subject attempts to access. Option D. An object owner. The correct answer is Option A. An access rule is an instruction developed to allow or deny access to an object by comparing the validated identity of the subject to an access control list. Explanation. An access rule is an instruction developed to allow or deny access to an object by comparing the validated identity of the subject to an access control list. In access control, an access rule is used to define the specific conditions under which a subject is authorized to access an object. The access rule compares the identity of the subject to an access control list, a CL that specifies the access permissions for the object. Question 7. Which of the following is an example of an access control list? Option A. A user's password. Option B. A firewall rule. Option C. An endpoint device. Option D. A communications resource. The correct answer is Option B. A firewall rule. Explanation. An access control list, a CL, is a list of rules that determines which users or entities are authorized to access a particular resource or system. ACLs can be implemented at various levels, including network, application, and file system. Question 8. In order to ensure that access to organizational assets is controlled and monitored, the CIO decide to implement a rule base. What would be the primary purpose of this rule base? Option A. To provide service to a user. Option B. To define how much access is allowed. Option C. To record the rules of access to an object. Option D. To apply time-based access. The correct answer is Option B. To define how much access is allowed. Explanation. A rule base is a set of rules that is used to control access to organizational assets. The rule base specifies the access permissions that are granted to a subject, such as a user or group, for a specific object. Question 9. Which of the following is an example of a device? Option A. A database. Option B. A printer or scanner. Option C. A software task. Option D. An access rule. The correct answer is Option B. A printer or scanner. Explanation. In the context of information technology, a device refers to any physical or virtual component or peripheral that is used to perform a specific function or task. Examples of devices include printers, scanners, keyboards, mice, monitors, hard drives, routers, and switches. Question 10. What is the primary purpose of time-based access? Option A. To validate the level of access a user should have to a file. Option B. To prevent unauthorized access to organizational assets. Option C. To manage business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Option D. To apply time restrictions to access. The correct answer is Option D. To apply time restrictions to access. Explanation. Time-based access control is a security mechanism that restricts access to a resource or system based on the time of day, week, month, or year. This mechanism allows administrators to define specific time windows during which users are permitted or denied access to a particular system or resource. Question 11. Which of the following is an example of a communications resource? Option A. An access control rule. Option B. A network protocol. Option C. A user password. Option D. An object owner. The correct answer is Option B. A network protocol. Explanation. In the context of information technology, a communications resource refers to any hardware, software, or protocol that is used to facilitate the exchange of information or data between two or more entities, such as devices, applications, or network. Examples of communications resources include protocols, such as TCP/IPP, HTTP, SM, TPP, and FTP. Question 12. What is the purpose of comparing multiple attributes in an access rule? Option A. To determine appropriate access to an object. Option B. To define how much access is allowed. Option C. To deny access to an object. Option D. To apply time-based access. The correct answer is Option A. To determine appropriate access to an object. Explanation. Access rules are a fundamental component of access control, which is the process of granting or denying access to a resource or system. An access rule typically consists of one or more conditions or attributes that are used to determine whether a particular user or entity is authorized to access a particular resource or system. Question 13. What is the purpose of granting appropriate levels of access to authorized personnel and processes? Option A. To restrict access to organizational assets. Option B. To manage business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Option C. To govern incident response plans. Option D. To ensure that authorized personnel and processes can access services and resources. The correct answer is Option D. To ensure that authorized personnel and processes can access services and resources. Explanation. The purpose of granting appropriate levels of access to authorized personnel and processes is to ensure that they can access services and resources necessary to perform their job functions or tasks, while also protecting sensitive or confidential information. Question 14. Which of the following is an example of a process? Option A. A printer or scanner. Option B. A software task. Option C. A communications resource. Option D. An input/output port. The correct answer is Option B. A software task. Explanation. In the context of information technology, a process refers to an executing program or software task that performs a specific function or set of functions. A process can be a standalone program, a module within a larger program, or a set of interdependent programs that work together to achieve a particular goal. Question 15. What is the primary purpose of denying access to unauthorized functions or individuals? Option A. To restrict access to organizational assets. Option B. To manage business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Option C. To govern incident response plans. Option D. To prevent unauthorized access to organizational assets. The correct answer is Option D. To prevent unauthorized access to organizational assets. Explanation. Access control is the process of granting or denying access to resources based on an entity's identity, role, or other attributes. By denying access to unauthorized functions or individuals, organizations can prevent unauthorized access or misuse of sensitive or confidential information and protect their assets from potential security breaches. Question 16. What is the purpose of defense in depth in information security? Option A. To guarantee that a cyber attack will not occur. Option B. To establish variable barriers across multiple layers and missions of the organization. Option C. To implement only technical controls to prevent a cyber attack. Option D. To provide unrestricted access to organizational assets. The correct answer is Option B. To establish variable barriers across multiple layers and missions of the organization. Explanation. Defense in depth is an information security strategy that integrates people, technology, and operations capabilities to establish variable barriers across multiple layers and missions of the organization. Question 17. Which of the following is an example of multi-factor authentication? Option A. Using a username and password. Option B. Using a code sent to your phone to verify your identity. Option C. Using a firewall to separate untrusted networks from trusted networks. Option D. Using a policy to assign access to authorized individuals. The correct answer is Option B. Using a code sent to your phone to verify your identity. Explanation. Technical example of defense in depth is multi-factor authentication, in which multiple layers of technical controls are implemented, such as using a username and password followed by a code sent to your phone to verify your identity. Question 18. Which of the following is an example of a technical access control? Option A. A lock on the door to a data center. Option B. A policy that defines the rules for assigning access to authorized individuals. Option C. A firewall that separates untrusted networks from trusted networks. Option D. A guard at the entrance to a building. The correct answer is Option C. A firewall that separates untrusted networks from trusted networks. Explanation. Defense in depth. Question 19. Which of the following is an example of an administrative control? Option A. Using a lock on the door to a data center. Option B. Using a policy that defines the rules for assigning access to authorized individuals. Option C. Using a firewall to separate untrusted networks from trusted networks. Option D. Using a guard at the entrance to a building. The correct answer is Option B. Using a policy that defines the rules for assigning access to authorized individuals. Explanation. An administrative control is a policy that defines the rules that assign access to authorized individuals and gives an example of a policy being used as a layer of defense in depth to prevent unauthorized access to data in a data center. Question 20. What is the main problem with assigning static privileges to administrative users on a database? Option A. Security is dependent upon the login process. Option B. Administrative users may forget their privileges. Option C. Static privileges are more expensive to implement. Option D. Static privileges may not provide enough access. The correct answer is Option A. Security is dependent upon the login process. Explanation. The passage states that without privileged access management, the system's access control would have those privileges assigned to the administrative user in a static way effectively on 24 hours a day, every day, making security dependent upon the login process. Question 21. Matthew's workplace is reviewing its access control procedures and considering implementing either just-in-time privileged access management or static access management. However, the team is unsure about the difference between these two approaches. How should Matthew explain the distinction between just-in-time privileged access management and static access management? Option A. Just-in-time privileged access management assigns privileges to administrative users in a static way. Option B. Just-in-time privileged access management assigns role-based specific subsets of privileges that only become active in real time. Option C. Static access management limits the amount of access available to administrative users. Option D. Static access management can prevent ransomware attacks. The correct answer is Option B. Just-in-time privileged access management assigns role-based specific subsets of privileges that only become active in real time. Explanation. The passage states that just-in-time privileged access management includes role-based specific subsets of privileges that only become active in real time when the identity is requesting the use of a resource or service, as opposed to being assigned in a static way. Question 22. What could have been done to limit the damage caused by the ransomware attack? Option A. Add more administrative users to the domain admins group. Option B. Use a different email client to prevent malicious attachments. Option C. Limit the use of administrator privileges to only when required. Option D. Delete all emails with attachments. The correct answer is Option C. Limit the use of administrator privileges to only when required. Explanation. The passage states that a privileged access management solution could limit the damage done by the ransomware if the administrator privileges are only used when performing a function requiring that level of access, such as performing routine operations without a higher level of access. Question 23. Which access control model assigns users to predefined roles and grants permissions based on their job responsibilities? Option A. MAC. Option B. DSC. Option C. RBAC. Option D. A BAC. The correct answer is Option C. RBAC. Explanation. Role-based access control, RBACE, assigns users to predefined roles and grants permissions based on their job responsibilities. RBAC simplifies access control management by organizing users into roles and assigning permissions to each role rather than assigning permissions to each user. RBAC is suitable for environments where users have well-defined job responsibilities. Question 24. A company wants to prevent unauthorized access to its server room. Which physical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Security cameras. Option B. Access badges. Option C. Biometric locks. Option D. Fences and gates. The correct answer is Option B. Access badges. Explanation. Access badges are best suited for this scenario. They allow for easy identification of authorized personnel and restrict access to the server room to those with valid badges. Question 25. Which of the following physical controls is used to protect a building from unauthorized access and monitor the movement of people? Option A. Man traps. Option B. Fences. Option C. Security guards. Option D. CCTV cameras. The correct answer is Option A. Man traps. Explanation. Man traps are used to protect a building from unauthorized access and monitor the movement of people. A man trap is a small space between two doors, where the first door must be closed and locked before the second door can be opened. Question 26. A company needs to protect its critical infrastructure from natural disasters. Which physical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Fire suppression systems. Option B. Backup generators. Option C. Flood barriers. Option D. Lightning rods. The correct answer is Option C. Flood barriers. Explanation. Flood barriers are best suited for protecting critical infrastructure from natural disasters, such as floods. They prevent water from entering the building and damaging critical equipment. Question 27. Which of the following physical controls is used to protect against eavesdropping and data theft through electromagnetic radiation? Option A. Screening rooms. Option B. EMI shielding. Option C. White noise generators. Option D. None of the above. The correct answer is Option D. None of the above. Explanation. EMI shielding is the physical control used to protect against eavesdropping and data theft through electromagnetic radiation. Question 28. A company wants to ensure that its employees cannot bring unauthorized electronic devices into the workplace. Which physical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Security guards. Option B. RFID scanners. Option C. Metal detectors. Option D. Baggage X-ray machines. The correct answer is Option C. Metal detectors. Explanation. Metal detectors are the physical control that is best suited for preventing employees from bringing unauthorized electronic devices into the workplace. Metal detectors are commonly used to screen individuals and their belongings from metal objects, including electronic devices. Metal detectors can be placed at entry and exit points to a workplace to detect metal objects on an individual's person or in their bags or belongings. Question 29. Which physical control is used to protect a building from unauthorized access through its windows? Option A. Window locks. Option B. Window bars. Option C. Security cameras. Option D. Security guards. The correct answer is Option B. Window bars. Explanation. Window bars are used to protect a building from unauthorized access through its windows. They prevent intruders from breaking into the building by blocking access to the windows. Question 30. A company wants to ensure that its employees can evacuate the building in case of an emergency. Which physical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Emergency lighting. Option B. Fire alarms. Option C. Exit signs. Option D. Emergency exit doors. The correct answer is Option D. Emergency exit doors. Explanation. Emergency exit doors are best suited for ensuring that employees can evacuate the building in case of an emergency. They provide a safe and quick exit route and are designed to open easily in case of an emergency. Question 31. A company wants to protect its parking lot from theft and vandalism. Which physical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Security cameras. Option B. Security guards. Option C. Perimeter fencing. Option D. Lighting. The correct answer is Option A. Security cameras. Explanation. Security cameras are best suited for protecting a parking lot from theft and vandalism. They allow for continuous monitoring of the area and can deter criminals from committing crimes. Question 32. Which type of control is used to identify that an attack has occurred or is currently occurring? Option A. Detective control. Option B. Preventive control. Option C. Corrective control. Option D. Recovery control. The correct answer is Option A. Detective control. Explanation. Detective controls are used to identify that an attack has occurred or is currently occurring. Examples of detective controls include intrusion detection systems, security logs, and security audits. Question 33. Which type of control is used to restore systems or processes to their normal state after an attack has occurred? Option A. Corrective control. Option B. Compensatory control. Option C. Recovery control. Option D. Detective control. The correct answer is Option A. Corrective control. Explanation. Corrective controls are used to restore systems or processes to their normal state after an attack has occurred. Examples of corrective controls include virus removal tools, data recovery software, and system restoration procedures. Question 34. Which type of control is used to minimize the impact of an attack and to restore normal operations as quickly as possible? Option A. Recovery control. Option B. Compensatory control. Option C. Corrective control. Option D. Detective control. The correct answer is Option A. Recovery control. Explanation. Recovery controls are used to minimize the impact of an attack and to restore normal operations as quickly as possible. Examples of recovery controls include backup systems, disaster recovery plans, and business continuity plans. Question 35. ANSE.co Enterprise have strict restrictions in access of computer systems and data. Which controls are they using? Option A. Logical control. Option B. Physical control. Option C. Administrative control. Option D. Logical control. The correct answer is Option D. Logical control. Explanation. Logical controls are used to restrict access to computer systems and data. Examples of logical controls include passwords, access controls, firewalls, and intrusion detection systems. Question 36. The management of D Murdoch PVTLT has decided to place controls to protect against environmental threats such as fire, flood, and earthquakes. What controls are they considering? Option A. Physical control. Option B. Logical control. Option C. Administrative control. Option D. Physical control. The correct answer is Option D. Physical control. Explanation. Physical controls are used to protect against environmental threats such as fire, flood, and earthquakes. Examples of physical controls include fire suppression systems, flood barriers, and seismic detectors. Question 37. A new BIOD policy has been enforced in Retail Insurance Group. Which type of control is used to enforce the security policies? Option A. Administrative control. Option B. Physical control. Option C. Logical control. Option D. Administrative control. The correct answer is Option D. Administrative control. Explanation. Administrative controls are used to enforce security policies and procedures. Examples of administrative controls include security policies, procedures, standards, and guidelines. Question 38. Profit Inc. after suffering a data breach has hired Gloria. What control should Gloria implement in order to prevent from any future data breach? Option A. Logical control. Option B. Physical control. Option C. Administrative control. Option D. Rule-based access control. The correct answer is option A. Logical control. Explanation. Logical controls are used to prevent data breaches by limiting the amount of data that users can access. Examples of logical controls include access controls permissions and data classification. Question 39. Tesmo Inc. is looking for controlling and preventing the spread of malware and viruses. What type of control can be used? Option A. Technical control. Option B. Physical control. Option C. Administrative control. Option D. None of the above. The correct answer is option A. Technical control. Explanation. Logical controls are used to prevent the spread of malware and viruses. Examples of logical controls include antivirus software intrusion detection and prevention systems and firewalls. Question 40. Dennis working for Mally's Food needs to prevent unauthorized access to data and system by managing user accounts and privileges. What type of control is needed to accomplish this? Option A. Administrative control. Option B. Physical control. Option C. Logical control. Option D. Administrative control. The correct answer is option D. Administrative control. Explanation. Administrative controls are used to prevent unauthorized access to data and systems by managing user accounts and privileges. Examples of administrative controls include access controls, identity and access management, IAM, systems and security policies and procedures. Question 41. A company wants to ensure that its employees can only access the resources they need to perform their job functions. Which access control model is best suited for this scenario? Option A. MAC. Option B. DIC. Option C. RBAC. Option D. A B, a C. The correct answer is option C. RBAC. Explanation. Role-based access control, RBAC, is best suited for this scenario. RBAC assigns users to predefined roles and grants permissions based on their job responsibilities. Question 42. A company wants to ensure that its employees can access the network resources from anywhere in the world. Which access control model is best suited for this scenario? Option A. MAC. Option B. DSC. Option C. RBAC. Option D. A BAC. The correct answer is option D. A BAC. Explanation. Attribute-based access control, a BAC, is best suited for this scenario. A BAC uses attributes such as user identity location and device type to determine access to network resources. Question 43. A company needs to protect its confidential data from unauthorized access. Which logical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Firewalls. Option B. Encryption. Option C. Antivirus software. Option D. Intrusion detection systems. The correct answer is option B. Encryption. Explanation. Encryption is best suited for protecting confidential data from unauthorized access. Encryption ensures that data is protected by making it unreadable without the appropriate decryption key. Question 44. A company wants to prevent unauthorized access to its systems by limiting access to specific IP addresses. Which logical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Access controls. Option B. Firewalls. Option C. Intrusion detection systems. Option D. Encryption. The correct answer is option B. Firewalls. Explanation. Firewalls are best suited for preventing unauthorized access to systems by limiting access to specific IP addresses. Firewalls allow or block traffic based on predefined rules and policies. Question 45. A company needs to ensure that its employees can access the network resources only from authorized devices. Which logical control is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Access controls. Option B. Encryption. Option C. Antivirus software. Option D. Network access control, NAC. The correct answer is option D. Network access control, NAC. Explanation. Network access control, NAC, is best suited for this scenario. NAC ensures that only authorized devices can access the network resources by checking the device's security posture and enforcing security policies. Question 46. A company wants to ensure that its employees can access the data center only during business hours. Which access control concept is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Time-based access control, TBSC. Option B. Identity and access management, IAM. Option C. Least privilege. Option D. Need to know. The correct answer is option A. Time-based access control, TBSC. Explanation. Time-based access control, TBSC, is best suited for this scenario. TBSC restricts access to resources based on the time of day, limiting access to the data center to business hours. Question 47. A company needs to ensure that its employees can access the network resources from anywhere in the world. Which access control process is best suited for this scenario? Option A. Identification. Option B. Authentication. Option C. Authorization. Option D. Accounting. The correct answer is option B. Authentication. Explanation. Authentication is best suited for this scenario. Authentication verifies the identity of the user and grants access to the network resources based on the user's credentials. Question 48. Which of these is an example of deterrent control? Option A. Encryption. Option B. Guard dog. Option C. Biometric. Option D. Turnstile. The correct answer is option B. Guard dog. Explanation. Deterrent controls are a type of security measure designed to deter or discourage unauthorized access or behavior. They are intended to make it more difficult or risky for an attacker to attempt to gain unauthorized access to a resource or system. Examples of deterrent controls include security cameras, motion sensors, alarms, warning signs, and guard dogs. Question 49. An organization wants to restrict employee after-hours access to its systems, so it publishes a policy forbidding employees to work outside of their assigned hours, and then make sure the office doors remain locked on weekends. This is an example of option A. Administrative, physical. Option B. Administrative, logical. Option C. Operational, physical. Option D. Technical, physical. The correct answer is option A. Administrative, physical. Explanation. In the scenario, the organization is implementing a physical control by locking the office doors on weekends to prevent unauthorized access to its systems. By implementing a combination of administrative and physical controls, the organization can effectively reduce the risk of unauthorized access to its systems after hours. Question 50. Which of the following situations call for provisioning new user accounts and changing privileges? Option A. When a company wants to promote an employee. Option B. When an employee has left the company. Option C. When an employee is hired. Option D. When a company wants to reduce an employee's access privileges. The correct answer is option C. When an employee is hired. Explanation. Provisioning new user accounts is required when an employee is hired. Option A is incorrect as it describes a change to an employee's role rather than the creation of a new account. Option B is incorrect as it describes disabling accounts after. Question 51. What type of access control system uses a user's physical characteristics to authenticate their identity? Option A. MAC. Option B. RBAC. Option C. Biometric. Option D. ACL. The correct answer is option C. Biometric. Explanation. Unlike traditional authentication methods such as passwords, smart cards, or tokens, biometric authentication relies on the physical characteristics of the user such as fingerprint facial recognition or iris recognition. Question 52. A company has implemented mandatory access control, MAC, for its confidential data. Which of the following statements is true? Option A. The owner of the data can modify the access controls. Option B. The data can be accessed by users who possess a need to know. Option C. The system administrator can change the access controls. Option D. Access controls cannot be changed by anyone except the system administrator. The correct answer is option D. Access controls cannot be changed by anyone except the system administrator. Explanation. Mandatory access control is a type of access control system that restricts access to resources based on security labels assigned to each resource and each user. In a MAC system, the security labels are predefined and cannot be modified by users. The system administrator is responsible for assigning security labels to resources and users, and for configuring the access control policies that enforce the security labels. Question 53. Which access control model is best suited for a large organization with many departments that have different data access needs? Option A. RBSC. Option B. DSC. Option C. MAC. Option D. a CL. The correct answer is option A, RBSC. Explanation. Role-based access control, RBSC, is best suited for a large organization with many departments that have different data access needs. RBSC simplifies access control management by organizing users into roles and assigning permissions to each role rather than assigning permissions to each user. Question 54. Which of the following access control model assigns security labels to data and enforces access based on the sensitivity of the data and the clearance of the user? Option A, MAC, mandatory access control. Option B, a BSC, attribute-based access control. Option C, DSC, discretionary access control. Option D, Bell-LaPadula. The correct answer is option D, Bell-LaPadula. Explanation. Bell-LaPadula BLP is a mandatory access control MAC model that assigns security labels to data and enforces access based on the sensitivity of the data and the clearance of the user. BLP prevents information flow from high security levels to lower security levels, but it allows read-only access from lower security levels to higher security levels. Question 55. Which access control method uses attributes and rules to define access policies that are evaluated by a central policy decision point? PDP? Option A, a BAC. Option B, DSC. Option C, EABAC. Option D, MAC. The correct answer is option A, a BAC. Explanation. Attribute-based access control, a BAC, uses attributes and rules to define access policies that are evaluated by a central policy decision point. PDP, a BSC, provides fine-grained access control by using multiple attributes to determine whether to grant access or not. A BSC is suitable for environments with dynamic access requirements. Question 56. A company uses multi-factor authentication, MFA, to protect its resources. Which of the following is an example of something the user has an MFA? Option A, username and password. Option B, smart card. Option C, fingerprint. Option D, challenge response token. The correct answer is option B, smart card. Explanation. A smart card is an example of something the user has in multi-factor authentication, MFA. Other examples of something the user has include a USB token, a security token, or a one-time password, OTP generator. Question 57. A security administrator needs to configure a system to prevent users from logging in outside of their normal business hours. Which access control model is best suited for this scenario? Option A, MAC. Option B, DAC. Option C, RBAC. Option D, time-based access control, TBAC. The correct answer is option D, time-based access control, TBAC. Explanation. Time-based access control, TBAC, is the best access control model for this scenario. TBAC enforces access controls based on the time of day, day of the week, or other time-related criteria. Question 58. Which access control model grants permissions based on the sensitivity of the data and the user's job function? Option A, MAC. Option B, RBAC. Option C, DSC. Option D, rule-based access control, RBAC2. The correct answer is option B, RBAC. Explanation. In RBAC, access permissions are granted based on the role or job function of the user and the sensitivity of the data or resource being accessed. Access is granted based on predefined roles or job functions, and users are assigned to those roles based on their job responsibilities and clearance levels. Question 59. A company has implemented a system that requires users to provide a username and password to access its resources. Which of the following is a weakness of this authentication method? Option A, users may forget their passwords. Option B, users may share their passwords with others. Option C, passwords may be intercepted and stolen. Option D, all of the above. The correct answer is option D, all of the above. Explanation. The weakness of the username and password authentication method is that users may forget their passwords, share their passwords with others, or have their passwords intercepted and stolen by attackers. Question 60. A hacker is trying to gain access to a company's network. Which of the following scenarios would be an example of defense in depth? Option A, the hacker is required to enter a username and password. Option B, the company relies solely on a firewall to block unauthorized access. Option C, the company stores all sensitive data on a single server. Option D, None of the above. The correct answer is option A. The hacker is required to enter a username and password. Explanation. It describes a layered defense strategy using multiple countermeasures, making it more difficult for the hacker to gain access. Option B is incorrect as it describes only a single technical control. Option C is incorrect as storing all sensitive data on a single server is not an example of defense in depth. Option D is incorrect as allowing employees to use weak passwords is a vulnerability rather than a defense measure.